When the bomb cyclone of 2025 buried Montana in ice, everyone in Timber Creek thought Jack was insane for digging a fortress into the mountain. Now, as the iron hatch groans under the crushing weight of snow, Jack faces a nightmare far worse than the storm itself. For the first time in 4 years, his K9 partner Titan is defying a direct military command. The shepherd is clawing at the sealed door, desperate to reach a dying man outside. In the middle of a whiteout that can kill in minutes, Jack must choose. Trust the discipline that once kept him alive, or unfasten the tether and follow his partner into the frozen unknown. The year 2025 brought an early frost to the Bitterroot Mountains. Jack slammed his shovel into the frozen earth, the heavy thud echoing across the lonely ridge. His gray stubble was dusted with white, and his calloused hands, seasoned by years of military labor, gripped the handle with a precision that never faded. He was a man built for resilience, wearing a canvas jacket that had seen better days but still held out the cold. Beside him, Titan sat like a silver statue. The 4-year-old German Shepherd was a powerhouse of muscle and bone, his thick coat the color of mountain mist. His ears were locked forward, tracking every sound in the valley below. Jack was not just digging, he was executing a tactical plan. He calculated the ventilation flow and the thermal mass of the surrounding rock, ensuring his underground refuge would remain habitable when the grid failed. For him, this bunker was the only place where the rules still made sense. The silence was broken by the distant rumble of an engine. Mayor Henderson arrived in a red truck, his face flushed and anxious. He looked at the deep scar Jack had carved into the mountain and asked for help. The town needed a veteran engineer to secure the community supply depot before the bomb cyclone hit. Jack did not stop his work. He remembered the whispers in town, the way they called him a paranoid ghost of a soldier. He looked at the mayor with eyes that had seen too many broken promises. He told the man that since they considered him a madman, they should let him die in his hole, alone. As the truck sped away, Titan let out a low, mournful whine. The dog watched the people leave, his tail still, sensing the wall Jack was building was not just made of stone. Later, a quiet man named Elias approached. He was a mechanic with a face lined like a roadmap of hard years. He did not ask for anything. He simply handed Jack a heavy steel seal for the bunker door. Jack felt the weight of the gift, a small crack finally forming in the shell of his anger. Inside the heart of the mountain, the air grew still as the year 2025 prepared to unleash its fury. Jack worked by the dim light of a lantern, his movements mechanical and fast. He checked the welds on the inner hatch, his intense gaze searching for any weakness. To Jack, this relentless work was a barricade. He believed that as long as he maintained military discipline, the memories of the men he had lost would stay buried. Titan was a radar with a heartbeat. The large shepherd lay with his massive paws stretched out, his gray ears twitching. Suddenly, he pressed his head against the cold floor, his body going rigid. He was sensing the infrasound, the deep and terrifying vibration of the atmosphere, shifting hundreds of miles away. Jack noticed the dog's change in posture. He checked the brass barometer. The needle was plunging toward the bottom of the scale. The storm was no longer a theory. It was an apex predator hunting the valley. Jack grabbed the heavy steel handle and pulled. The hatch shut with a deep and final groan of metal. He turned the lock, sealing himself and Titan into the silence of the earth. The storm arrived with a deafening roar that shook the very foundation of the mountains. Inside the bunker, the wind shrieked through the narrow ventilation pipes, creating a high-pitched metallic scream. To Jack, the sound was a trigger. Suddenly, he was no longer in Montana. He was back in the year 2012, trapped under the ruins of a collapsed bunker in Iraq. The screaming wind became the sound of grinding steel beams and the desperate shouts of his unit. He fell to his knees, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His hands clawed at the stone floor as if trying to dig his way out of a tomb that only existed in his mind. Titan acted immediately. The silver shepherd did not pace or bark. He moved with a calm and protective weight, lying directly across Jack's chest. The 40-kilogram weight of the dog acted as a physical anchor. Titan pressed his head against Jack's cheek, his steady breathing a silent rhythm for Jack to follow. Slowly, the shadows of the past retreated. Jack gripped Titan's thick fur, his forehead resting against the dog's warm neck. He finally let out a long breath, the rigid discipline he had used as a shield finally shattering. In that dark chamber, surrounded by the fury of the mountain, Jack allowed himself to be human again, protected by the only creature who truly knew his soul. The year 2025 saw the Bitterroot Mountains vanish beneath a suffocating layer of ice and snow. Inside the bunker, the air was heavy with the scent of old oil and the faint hum of the ventilation system. Jack sat at his small metal table, his intense eyes fixed on a topographic map. He was a man who believed in the absolute power of preparation and the rigid structure of military command. To Jack, a soldier was only as good as his discipline, and he expected the same from the loyal creature at his side. Titan, the magnificent 4-year-old German shepherd with the thick silver and gray coat, was no longer resting. He stood by the heavy steel hatch, his massive paws shifting restlessly on the stone floor. Suddenly, the silence of the chamber was broken by a frantic scraping sound as Titan's claws dug into the metal of the door. A persistent and urgent bark echoed off the stone walls, a sound filled with a desperate need to reach the outside world. Titan was sensing something that Jack's instruments could not capture. The dog knew that Elias, the old mechanic who lived in the fragile trailer down the slope, was in grave danger. Jack stood up, his heavy boots making a dull thudding sound. He used his command voice, the one that had led men through the darkest nights of the year 2012. He shouted for Titan to heel and sit. It was a direct order meant to be followed without question. But for the first time in 4 years of constant companionship, Titan did not obey. The dog did not turn his head or lower his tail. He continued to scratch at the seal of the hatch, his silver fur bristling with anxiety. Jack felt a surge of frustration. He reached for the heavy tactical lead and clipped it to Titan's collar, trying to pull the dog back to his designated resting spot. He felt the incredible strength of the shepherd pulling against him. Jack yelled the command again, his voice louder this time, demanding the discipline that had kept them both alive for so long. Then everything went quiet for a long second. Jack looked at the dog's ears, which were locked toward the direction of the Thung Lung. He looked at the door that Elias had helped him seal. He realized that Titan was not being rebellious. The dog was acting on a higher level of loyalty that transcended military drills. Jack remembered how Elias had looked at him with respect when the rest of the town laughed. Jack's hand moved to the heavy steel carabiner on Titan's lead. He felt the tension in the cord, a physical manifestation of his desire to control the situation. He looked into Titan's golden eyes and saw a plea for trust. In a moment of profound realization, Jack squeezed the metal clip and unfastened the lead. He was letting go of his rigid rules. He was choosing to trust the instinct of his partner over his own tactical maps. By unclipping that lead, Jack was not just freeing his dog, he was freeing himself from the fortress of isolation he had built around his heart. The world outside the bunker was a void of blinding white in the year 2025. Jack stepped into the fury of the bomb cyclone, his heavy tactical boots sinking deep into the fresh powder. He wore a specialized snowsuit and goggles, his breath coming in short, muffled bursts through a thick wool mask. He was a veteran engineer, and he knew the mountains were trying to kill him. He checked his handheld GPS, but the screen flickered and went dark as the extreme cold drained the battery. He was blind, relying only on a compass and the strength of the creature leading him. Titan moved with a purpose that defied the storm. The silver and gray German shepherd leaned into the wind, his massive paws finding traction where there seemed to be none. He was not just a dog now. He was a beacon. Jack had tied a sturdy rescue line between his belt and Titan's harness. As the wind reached a terrifying roar, Jack felt the tension in the cord. Titan was air-scenting, his nose picking up the faint smell of leaking propane and old grease through the frozen air. They found the trailer down the slope, half buried and crushed under the weight of a massive fallen pine. Titan began to dig frantically, his silver fur soon covered in a crust of ice. Jack reached the wreckage and saw Elias trapped beneath a twisted steel beam. The old man was pale and silent. Jack acted with the speed of a combat medic. He positioned a portable hydraulic jack and began to pump the handle. The metal groaned under the pressure. Just as Jack reached in to pull Elias out, the jack slipped on a patch of black ice. Without thinking, Jack shoved his left hand into the gap to catch the falling beam. A sickening crunch echoed through the small space as the weight of the steel and the fallen tree crushed his fingers against the frozen earth. A blinding flash of white-hot pain exploded in his mind, but he did not pull away. If he did, Elias would be crushed. He gritted his teeth, his weathered face contorting in agony. With his free right hand, he hauled the unconscious mechanic into the snow. As they began the long crawl back, Jack's vision started to fail. The pain in his hand was becoming a dull, icy throb, and his body was shutting down. A dark thought from the year 2012 surfaced in his mind. He remembered lying in the dust of Iraq, thinking that no one would ever come for him. For a second, he wanted to stop and let the snow cover them all, but then he felt a sharp tug on his sleeve. Titan had turned back. The shepherd gripped Jack's jacket in his teeth and pulled with all his might. Titan was not just a partner. He was the one fixing a broken belief in Jack's heart. He was proving that this time, someone was there. Jack found a final spark of strength, gripped Titan's harness, and let the dog lead them toward the hidden light of the bunker. The heavy silence of the storm had finally faded into a soft and peaceful stillness by the morning of the year 2025. Inside the bunker, the air remained a steady and comfortable temperature, a sharp contrast to the frozen world outside. Jack sat on a wooden bench, his messy salt and pepper hair falling over his forehead. His face was pale from exhaustion, and his left hand was wrapped in a thick and heavy bundle of white bandages. The frostbite and the crush injury from the steel beam were a painful burden, making every small movement a struggle. He tried to open a container of military rations with his right hand, but the metal lid was stubborn. He winced as a sharp throb of pain radiated up his arm, reminding him of the price he had paid. Titan lay near the small heater, his thick silver and gray coat reflecting the warm glow of the lanterns. The magnificent 4-year-old German shepherd was busy licking a small cut on his massive paw, his tail giving a single and tired thump against the stone floor. Elias sat up on the cot, wrapped in a heavy wool blanket. The old mechanic, with his lined face and tired eyes, watched Jack in silence. He saw the bandage and the exhaustion in the eyes of the veteran who had risked everything. Elias did not need to speak. The quiet air in the chamber was full of a new kind of respect and a shared understanding between two men who had survived the impossible. Jack stood up slowly, his heavy boots making a quiet sound on the stone floor. He walked toward the massive steel hatch. For a long time, he had treated this door as a shield to keep the world away. He had built this Fauji to protect himself from the pain of his memories and the judgment of the people in the valley. He had wanted to be invisible and untouched. But as he looked back at Elias and then at the loyal dog at his side, the cold resentment that had fueled him for so long finally began to melt away. Jack reached for the heavy locking wheel with his good hand. He did not just crack the door open to peek outside as he usually did. Instead, he put his weight into it and pushed both steel wings wide open. The long and low screech of the metal hinges echoed through the stone chamber. Immediately, a brilliant and blinding flood of morning sunlight poured into the bunker. The intense white light reflected off the fresh mountain snow, filling the dark room with a radiant and golden glow. The light was so bright that it completely obscured Jack's weathered features, turning him into a dark silhouette against the beauty of the Bitterroot Mountains. Jack had built this fortress to defend himself, to ensure that the world could never hurt him again. He had used stone and steel to hide from his own heart. But on that cold and bright morning, he opened the doors as wide as they could go. He realized that the bunker was no longer a place to hide. He was not just stepping out into the world, he was finally letting the rest of the world come inside. In the end, we learned that the strongest fortresses are not made of stone or steel, but of the silent promises kept between a man and his dog. Jack and Titan showed us that opening our hearts is the bravest act of all, even after the bitterest winters. If their story found a place in your soul today, please share your thoughts below or subscribe to stay with us for more tales of brotherhood and healing. Your support through a like or share helps us bring unhung stories of hope to others who may be facing their own storms. Thank you for being part of our journey, and we invite you to click the video on your screen now to see how the bond of loyalty continues in our next chapter.